everybody, welcome. It's not the Perkins from Electra Astrology. We're going to go into the astrology of the week. We are looking at the week of January 13th through the 19th. We start off with a full moon, and these full moon weeks are always pretty filled with energy, no matter what else is happening. And we know that there's some wild stuff happening right now everywhere we look. So again, as we are looking at this sign of Capricorn and we are immersed in the Capricorn energy, and I am releasing new Capricorn talks all month. And Capricorn is connected with the government and the governing bodies. And Pluto has now officially moved into Aquarius, and Aquarius is the energy of the revolution, making the things like government better. But a lot of times, in order to make things better, we have to really challenge the status quo. We have to look at things through a different eye, through a different lens. So I encourage you to keep being curious as well as asking yourself the important questions. Why is this happening? What is happening? Understanding that the powers that be, and that can be anything from the government, the actual government, all the way down to people that are trying to sell us stuff, anybody that has an interest in being powerful and having control. That can include our inner critic, that can include all of us, but to a bigger extent, really questioning the motives of any kind of government. What is going on? Is it in your best interest, my best interest, our best interest? And is what we are being told true? It's a good time to question. It's a good time not to blindly believe everything because we're in a time of revolution. The more that we all understand about that, the better off we're going to be, because that is where true power is, when we really understand that the governing bodies are not always going to be better at government than we are. And if we're using our inner critic as an example, think of how many things your inner critic has beaten you up about even today. And if you really go in there and question, why? Does that matter? Is it true that that meant that I was bad or stupid? We're going to find that the answer is no, of course not. The governing body is not doing a good job. So, just a little food for thought as we continue to move into this wild and crazy year. A huge thank you to everybody that came to my live workshop. Those are so fun. I love gathering with all of you guys and just connecting with you and sharing some of this astrology. I'm going to be doing another one of those in March. So if you missed the first one, definitely join me next time. I am beginning an astrology cohort. We're going to learn astrology, but we're also going to connect it to what's happening in our own lives with our own mission and purpose, etc. So that's going to be a great group. You can find more information on that on my website, electraastrology.com. Let's talk about the charts. All right. Well, we begin this week on January 13th with a full moon in the sign of Capricorn at 23:59. So it's right before it switches to 24 degrees. Now, I did release the Capricorn Cancer teaching on YouTube where I'm talking about the balance of these two energies. It's a good one to listen to on a full moon week because you're going to be feeling the push-pull of that part of you that is Capricorn in nature, that wants to get things done, wants to move into action and ensure success and get it together and do a good job at it. With that Cancerian part of you that is more tender-hearted and wants to be home and wants to be safe. Now, we do have Mars in retrograde in the sign of Cancer in a conjunction with this moon. So we've been dealing with Cancer Mars retrograde for over a week now, and it brings up irritation and annoyance, especially around family dynamics, places where you're feeling resentment or you're feeling that you may have been abandoned in the past or your needs aren't getting met. And the advice with Mars is to really understand your own boundaries. And I think that's good advice for this moon too, understanding your boundaries, understanding how far you're willing to go and where you must stop. And as we're working through all of this Capricorn stuff, especially when it comes to questions around governing bodies, is that we have to develop our own sense of morals, our own values and ethics. What is right for me? What am I willing to do? How far am I willing to go? And does it seem like it's in alignment with me? Because we are each our own higher authority. And then after that is our relationship to source. But the more that we're connected in with our source connection, the easier it is to know what our morals and values are. And then the easier it is to know what authority you're willing to listen to follow, to believe. And ultimately, when it comes time to making your own decisions and taking your own actions, that you know that you're doing the thing that is right for you. You're doing the thing that when you look back in 5 years, you're going to say, I was making the right decision for me. Now, the nodes have just switched. That happened just on Saturday, this past. I talked about it in my weekly forecast, but we do see the nodes here now at 29 degrees of Virgo, South Node, and Pisces, North Node. This is a whole energetic shift on many levels. It's an energetic shift from the last 18 months where we were dealing with dumping the South Node Libra stuff, all of that people pleasing, the placing value on things that just didn't even matter at all. For example, placing value on a really expensive purse when the truth is that you get the expensive purse and within 5 days you're bored of it, when the true value is spending time with family. So we've been dumping all of that Libra shadow, being nice, gossiping. And we have been trying to move toward Aries, finding ourselves, laying down our boundaries, understanding what we're willing to do to advocate for what we want. And now the game has changed. Now we are looking at releasing some of the shadow of the Virgo. And I just talked about this in my Vesta episode. We just started with the asteroid Vesta, by the way. So if you haven't heard that, you should listen to that. That's a fascinating asteroid. And I love talking about Vesta. And we went really deep. So we're talking a bit about Virgo in that episode and how Virgo out of balance is where we are over obligated. And we're just so busy that we get resentful, we get crabby and fault finding. And so this next 18 months or so is going to be really important that we're getting out of that black and white, right or wrong mentality where it's holding us back, because we're moving into that North Node Pisces energy, which is much more spiritual in nature. This is where we're continuing to tune in with the things that are invisible. And let me tell you, there's a lot going on in this world that we have yet to understand that is continuing to be unveiled. So again, a repeat on the reminder that moving forward, this is about you and your discernment, about what feels right to you through your intuition, through your instinct, through your gut response. Because the things that we are told, the things that we are expected to believe, because that's what we've always believed, are really starting to come to light. That some of that stuff is fantasy. It's just a fairy tale and it's never been true, or things that we've been told are not true are actually the truth. As we move into North Node Pisces, which by the way is only 2 degrees away from Neptune at this point, these two will be making a conjunction soon. It's so important that the answers are coming not from your sense of black or whitedness, but your intuitive downloads. I don't know if black or whitedness is even a word, but we'll say it is. And I also want to point out that the sun is in a nice trine to Uranus here, and Uranus is bringing in the shifts and the changes. So we already know just from these first 13 days of January that it's wild. It's probably going to keep being wild. That's okay. We have support. We have our connection to our higher power, and we also have the power of our community, people that we love, that we can rest into. And it's going to become more and more important that we are tuning into those two things that are, once again, of true value: our community, the people that we love, and also our relationship to source. On January 14th, we have Venus coming in pretty hot here. Venus is in the sign of Pisces, about to make a conjunction to Saturn in a few days. But before it does that, Venus is making a square to Jupiter. So Venus loves to be in Pisces generally. This is not the easiest time for her to be there because Venus is exalted in Pisces and it's very magical and mystical and dreamy and romantic. But Wow, Saturn's there. That's the big, heavy, wet blanket of authority and of doing the right thing. And Neptune is there, which is the planet that can be very confusing and destabilizing. And a square to Jupiter doesn't help. The squares are creative tension. Jupiter is already in a sign that it doesn't love to be in, Gemini. We're having to look at the way that we intake information and what we believe to be true. And so this might be a little bit of like your rose-colored glasses needing to come off. Venus in Pisces can be very much about the rose-colored glasses, and they're like, oh, it's all going to be okay. And we all know that our rose-colored glasses can get very thick and very hard to see the truth from behind. So, a good week to take off the rose-colored glasses and just settle into a deeper sense of reality. I took you guys into an exercise in the Vesta talk where we were reminded of the present moment and how to get there. Taking a deep breath and just coming into the here and the now. It's difficult to wear your rose-colored glasses into the here and the now, but it's also difficult to bring your anxiety in here. So present moment practices of deep breath, just being here in your body, in your room that you're in, feeling into what it is like to be here right now is a great way to just click off anything that's distracting you, bringing you either into the highest of highs or the lowest of lows about that information that's coming into your system right now. On the 15th, we have the Sun at 26 degrees of Capricorn making an opposition to Mars in retrograde at 26 degrees of Cancer. So, again, this is that energy of the full moon where we're having to weigh out the warring parts of ourselves, the parts of ourselves that may be stuck in Mars Cancer. And I've done a lot of readings for people this week where they've shared that there was a lot of family drama. There was a lot of fighting going on within the extended family. There were people that weren't speaking to people, or people that were at odds or estranged or feeling frustrated. That's really normal. But Mars retrograde is asking us to keep going back into your part of this. Okay, it doesn't mean that you are going to be problem solving necessarily or bringing those relationships back into a place of ease. But when we look at our own part in the downfall of a relationship, into the stress of a relationship, we usually find some good stuff where we then say, all right, I can see I'm being irrational, or I'm being judgmental, or my feelings are hurt, or I am retaliating, right? I mean, let's be honest. We all have our part in our family dramas. And this is a good reminder to go into that inner Capricorn that is within you that says, I'm going to be realistic about this. I am going to look at this through the lens of logic and practicality. I'm going to try to keep my feelings out of it. My feelings can act like the fuse that you light that sets the bomb off. So we're acknowledging, yes, there's drama and difficulty, but I'm going to process it. I want to look at my part in it. And then I want to come into my logical, practical side that says, what are the next steps here? Am I going to hold on to this forever? Do I need to do something specific to forgive and forget, or to repair, or to just come to a place of more neutrality? Next up on the 17th, Friday, we have the Sun making a sextile to Neptune. So this might feel like a balm to that Mars-Sun opposition because the sextile brings in some ease and flow. So this may be where your intuitive downloads or your guides or your source connection shows up with some answers for you about how to come into that neutrality. On the 18th, we are watching as Mercury makes a sextile to Venus. That's great, giving Venus some extra information about probably how to deal with Saturn, because a few hours after that, Venus makes its conjunction with Saturn. That's going to be on Saturday. So this is, again, another massive reality check, especially if you are in relationships that are stressful, that are out of alignment, where you have had your rose-colored glasses on or you've ignored red flags. This might also show up around some questions around money and finances. If you have been pie in the sky and there's been financial things that have felt too good to be true, this might be the reality check for you. Saturn is hard energy to deal with. It can feel like a big brick wall that we go slamming into. But one thing I love about Saturn, and Saturn is my chart ruler after all, but I like Saturn because it helps get you back on track. It does help you to tune in with the reality of what's happening. And I think that a lot of times reality can be a really helpful place to get answers from. Now, it doesn't mean that Saturn is bringing stuff that's all difficult. Sometimes Saturn can be like making the commitment, right? Like a marriage proposal, or it can look like making the commitment to pay off debt or shaking hands on a business deal. Saturn is where we get practical and we cross the T's and dot the I's. Finally, I want to talk on this same day. We're looking at the sun making a sextile to these nodes. This is the first time that the sun is aspecting the nodes in the new signs. So look for some downloads, look for some mission orders about what it is that you're going to really be working with during this 18-month period with the nodes in Pisces and Virgo. We also see that the moon is conjunct the south node. So the getting clear on what you need to dump in terms of that Virgo shadow of being busy, 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 obligated, black, white, right, wrong, judgmental, right? Oof, yeah, we're trying to get rid of that. So anyway, I hope this was helpful and I will see you all next week.